Hey everybody, welcome to Performance Anxiety. I am your host Mark, and I want to thank our sponsor AKG for sending us their Podcaster Essentials kit. It comes with a wonderful Lyra mic and a beautiful set of headphones. If you ever thought about starting your own podcast, this is the most economical, highest quality way to do it. This episode, I am honored to be joined by a great guitarist as well as an all-around great guy, Dave Weiner. Dave has been Steve Vai's rhythm guitarist for many years. He shares how he met Steve and how Steve has helped him grow by keeping him out of his comfort zones. He also tells us the most important lessons he's learned from Steve. Dave has released 3 solo albums and already remastered one of them, and he's set to release another soon. It's not easy writing and recording music when you tour with Steve Vai. So when everything was locked down last year, Dave took advantage of that time. He also talks about his website, Guitopia.com, how it began, and what's in store for it in the near future. Follow Dave on Instagram at Dave Weiner Guitar, at Guitopia, at Visible at Night, or at Monument Shine. On Twitter, at Dave Weiner Music, at Monument Shine, or at Visible at Night. And Facebook is Dave Weiner Music. Follow us at Performance ANX on Instagram and Twitter. We do like coffee from ko-fi.com/performance anxiety if you're inclined to treat us to a cup. And you can purchase some merch at performanceanx.threadless.com. So let's get right into the conversation with Dave Weiner on Performance Anxiety, part of the Pantheon Podcast Network.
All right, this is Dave Weiner. I'm on the Performance Anxiety Podcast. You can check me out online, Facebook, YouTube, etc. Listen to the podcast and enjoy.
It's been at least 2 fingers of whiskey day. So...
You know what? That reminds me, if you give me just 1 second, I'm going to run and grab a beer. 2 seconds.
Take your time, man. No rush.
It's always great when this is my basement. It's always great. I got a fridge right in this little utility room, just
nice.
Full of beer.
Oh, that's good.
Convenient for writing purposes.
Improv, jams. Yeah, my beer fridge is across the house, so I keep my whiskey close by my. So I've got my nice Buffalo Trace.
You know what? I swear somebody was just talking about Buffalo Trace, because I've been saying, I'm not well versed in whiskey, Scotch, bourbon, like all of, and I know that they're different, right. But a friend of mine was like, go for Buffalo Trace. It's a good one to just start to get a good palate with whiskey and such.
Yes.
I'm always looking at little things, like easy things, like getting into beer, wine, any kind of drink, you know what I mean, just something that's a distraction. Like all day I started my I didn't start, but I guess I did kind of officially start my next record today.
Oh, cool. My
acoustic record that's coming out is off to mixing and mastering, so now I'm on to the next one, and I'm just in this mindset of just one after another. I'm, for better or for worse, being in Vai's band for so long and all the touring that has entailed, which I'm not complaining about at all, right. But you find yourself short on time, because these tours are fairly intense. It's usually 5, 6, 7 nights in a row and then a day off. And when I was younger, I had the ambition of, on my day off in the hotel, I'll just I'll record, I'll write. Now it's like when we get that day off, I'm sleeping, right. I'm just relaxing. So I feel I got to catch up a little bit on the music that I want to release. So now I'm just one after another banging it out, and for like the last 3 hours, I know what the sound, generally the Friedmans are what I go to, but, every time I start a new project, I do experiment. So I was experimenting with the Friedman through the cabinets, the Friedman through this, I know you can't see it, but there's a Boss tube amp expander on top of these amps. the Axe effects. I pulled out some of these other amps. I always end up going back to the same thing, but I do like to, do the diligence and just experiment a little bit. But hours of what's this sound like? What's this sound like? It's like, all right, I need a drink.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my day today. It's like everything that could go wrong did.
Some days it's like, can't anything just go easily.
Exactly. And my biggest fear in recording these is that I'm unprepared for my guest and I say something stupid about your music. So
I get it. I get it. There's such, when it comes down to it, there's such little time in the day for most things. So it's no big deal. I'm so like, at this point, I'm barely answering emails, texts, anything, unless it's absolute priority. I just kind of keep pushing off until it's okay. This is the date that this has to happen. So there's just so much. There's only so much time in the day, and you have to pick and choose your battles. So
it looks like you're drinking a Yingling.
Yes.
So you Pennsylvania boy, right?
I live outside of Philadelphia. Yeah.
Nice. All right, man. I grew up in New Jersey, so I'm very familiar with the areas.
Yeah. Half of my family is over in Jersey in the Cherry Hill area.
That wasn't too far from where I grew up. I grew up in Branchburg area. So.
Okay. Great. It's a great location.
It really is. It's so easy to get to anywhere.
Yeah. I really dig it. I mean, for me, it's always been convenient. For what I do, an hour to the shore, 90 minutes to Manhattan, a couple hours down to PRS, down in Maryland or going down to DC or something. It's always been, nice and convenient.
Yeah. And I'm close to DC now. So I'm in Winchester, home of Patsy Cline.
Cool. The
first time I ever actually found out about you, discovered you and your music, was at a Steve Vai show. And it was 2005 tour, the Real Illusions tour. And
was that the one with the violin players or no? Or was that with like Tony McAlpine and Billy Sheehan? And such?
That was Tony McAlpine and Billy Sheehan. Yeah, because I lived in Southeast Alabama at the time.
Oh, okay.
And my wife, it was around my birthday, so it was like mid to late June. And I've got these 2 tickets. My wife and I decide it's in Birmingham, but that's like 3 hours away. My wife and I drive up to go see the show. And we're watching the show, and Eric Sardinas opened up.
Yep.
And that dude, first of all, the show was wild.
He rips.
He did. And but so then I'm like, this is great. I'm going to go to the merch table and buy his album. So I go and I pick it up and I turn around and I go face first into his stomach because he's so huge. I mean, I'm 5'6", so and he's like Bret Michaels meets Gene Simmons because he's this enormous dude. He's got these huge boots on and this cowboy hat. He's like 7 feet tall. And I bump into him with this CD and he's like, "Oh, awesome, man, thanks." And he grabs it and just signs it. And I'm like, holy crap, I didn't even have to ask. Thanks, man. So then I go back out and I see your album there and I'm like, all right, let me pick this up. This is because it was, the price was right. And it was like, I'm like, the guy's playing with Steve's got to be good. So I pick it up and I'm trying to remember if after the show was kind of weird because it was my birthday. So my wife goes to the security officer after the show's over, and it was an incredible show. You guys are amazing. And the security guard, the head of security is there, and he's shooing everybody out. And my wife goes up to him and he's like, "Hey, I got a favor. I know you probably get asked this all the time. Is there any way we could meet Steve Vai?" And he's like, he's like, "Oh, I get it. I don't know." She's like, "It's my husband's birthday. He's a huge fan." And this is at a place called the Boutwell Auditorium. So it was on the 2nd floor of this building. It's like, all right, just go downstairs.
I think I remember that place.
Oh, cool.
Was it? Maybe I'm wrong. And again, it's been so long, and we play so many shows.
Yeah.
For some reason, though, and now I'm getting it mistaken, but I could have sworn that was like a long, like the stage, like if it was a rectangle, the stage was facing the short wall. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's kind of like an open space. There wasn't any. Yeah, there's like no seating or anything. It was just a big, huge auditorium. It was like playing in a school gym.
Yes. I was about to say a gym.
Yeah.
For some reason, I remember that down in Birmingham.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I'm like, all right, he tells us to go wait for him downstairs. I'm like, oh, he's just blowing us off. You know. We go downstairs, and my wife's like, no, let's just wait a couple minutes. So we go down. All of a sudden, he pops up. He's like, hey, guys, come here. I'm like, okay. He's like, all right, let's go. We'll go down to the basement. There's showers in there. Usually, the bands will shower up, get ready so they don't have to be all sweaty on the bus. So, okay. Right. So we go down, and he takes us. It's like this labyrinth of. It's this maze to get there. We finally get there, and we're hanging out, just waiting by these lockers. And security guard goes away. He's gone. All of a sudden, this guy comes up in a King's X jacket.
Okay.
And I'm like,
the tour manager.
Yes. And like, I love King. Oh, that's an awesome jacket, man. I love King's X. He goes, oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I managed them or something. We're talking. Yeah. He's like, what are you guys doing down here? Like, well, it's my birthday, and the head of security, he kind of let us down here and just to meet Steve, just to say hi for my birthday and thank him for a great show. And he's like, oh, Steve's down on the other end. He's already at the buses. I'm like, oh, shit. Just then the security guy comes back, and he's like, hey, I noticed you guys didn't have anything for him to sign, so I tore these posters off the wall, and I found a silver marker for you.
That's really nice.
And I'm like, hey, well, he's down at the other end by the buses. He's like, follow me. And he starts running. And we just take off down these hallways. He opens the door, and there's the buses. He's like, all right, he should be over there. Good luck. Okay, so we go then. There's a crowd of the VIP people there. So we work our way through the crowd to get up there. And literally as soon as we get like one person between us, Steve's like, all right, that's it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I'm like, My wife goes, oh, hell no. And she blows through. Steve's walking to the bus. She actually goes up to him and grabs him by the shoulder and says, Mr. Vi. And he stops, and he's like, hello? And my wife's like, I'm sorry. She's like, it's my husband's birthday. We drove 3 hours to see the show, and I really just wanted him to meet you for his birthday. And it was such an amazing show. And this is the first concert I've ever been to. It was amazing. And he stopped me. He's like, this was your first concert? He's like, yeah, I've never been to one before. You chose my show to be your first concert? Cool. Yeah. But it was my husband's birthday, and he wanted. Thank you so much. That means so much. You guys drove 3 hours for your first show, and they just started talking for like 10 minutes. I was like, "Well, hey, thanks, Mr. Vi. I appreciate it." But he signed the thing, and he wished us well, a safe drive back home. But we sat there and talked with him for like 10 minutes.
Steve's a really very warm, very appreciative, and generous person with his time and with fans, because again, anyone who even attempts to do music as a living, it's up to the fans. And some people are, you get to a certain point, I would say, that I have never even thought about, but I can imagine like somebody on Steve's level being a rock star that he is, and especially when it was like the rock star heyday in the David Lee Roth era, the White era, you get used to a certain kind of lifestyle, a certain kind of interaction even with, the general public. And sometimes you can be sheltered from that and lose your social skills.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's by circumstance, and sometimes it is the ego, whatever it is. But Steve is just one of the most evolved human beings mentally. He has to be. Well, yeah, he's definitely one of the most evolved human beings, and he understands, the effort that it would take to drive 3 hours and take the time. That's 6 hours out of your day just to commute and then purchase the ticket, see the show. That's not lost on most people, I would say. Some people, when they get past that kind of rock star status, they can kind of be like, cool, see ya, whatever it might be. And, but Steve's not like that. Steve's super cool. I've seen, I've been on tours with, not in the vibe band, but other situations where some people are just too rock star for their own head. And I don't know. I don't get that because I was, if I ever was like that growing up, it's just not, it's just not necessary. It's not needed. It's a little bit of an issue, I think, now but completely unfounded and invalid with social media.
Yeah.
I've met people who are very, very, very nice people, and they're popular on YouTube, but they have a head on them. And it's like reality stars almost.
Yes.
And, no, I'm grossly generalizing. I know that. But it's like,
but I know what you're saying.
Famous for being famous. But
the Paris Hilton effect.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, and I've been a Steve Vai fan since Passion and Warfare came out. Went back and got his stuff before that. Afterwards, I became a completist. But that interaction just made me a lifelong fan. I mean, I've never missed a release from him. But at that point, I just I said, what, that type of interaction means so much. So
yeah, and it's such a simple thing to just spend a few minutes with somebody. I mean, most people like to have somebody want to just have a conversation with you, just spend a little time with you, just as humans. That should be a really great feeling. It should be a really great thing. Now, again, some people, to converse that, some people don't understand that sometimes we are on a very strict schedule.
Yeah.
And especially after a long day, and Steve Vai shows are not short. No. And it can be tired. It can be tiring, but it is a testament to who Steve is. He goes above and beyond to make time for people. And that he's always been a great example for me in those situations from day one, joining his band when I was in my early 20s. He's like, you gotta treat people right.
Yeah.
You have to do the right thing just on a human level, but you got to treat people right. And it's not for anything other than it's how you would want to be treated as well. And, the golden rule.
Exactly.
It's not surprising, but it is surprising how some people just don't get it.
Yeah. Now, you joined his band pretty early, but you weren't always a guitarist. You started out on drums, didn't you?
Well, not professional.
Not professional, but that was your first instrument of choice.
It was.
I'm doing my air drums here as...
when I was, I don't even know, 5 or 6 or 7 years old, I would set up pillows on my bed. And I was in the school band, but by band, that means you're just playing a snare.
Right.
It wasn't a kit.
Right.
It was like marching band type stuff. And I was playing. So I had a set of sticks, but I wanted a kit so bad, but I didn't have one. So I would set up pillows and I would play along to these records, like note for note. And I didn't even, I didn't really know what I was doing, but in my head, that's where he is and blah, blah, blah. Right. So, and then I did start playing drums, and it was a really fortuitous thing as a musician because any instrument, the rhythm is the priority. No rhythm, no music, no matter what. You can have all the chops and technique and knowledge and all this stuff. If you don't know how to put it through rhythm, it's not going to land ever. It's not going to connect. When I was 10, I switched over to guitar, and it was always kind of a rhythm forward type of thing. I mean, to the point, a little bit detrimentally in my 10 to 21 age range.
Really?
I literally never practiced technique.
Oh, wow.
All about writing. I learned a ton of songs back then. Now I couldn't play like 3 of them, but back then when you're a teenager, that's all I wanted to do. And I had a band, the original band. We were writing. We put out 2 records when I was a teenager, original records. That's what it was always about. I mean, don't get me wrong. Through that and through learning other songs, that was kind of my way to practice technique. But I was completely not enthused about sitting there with a metronome and just going, over and over again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I still do it. I started doing it, and now I still do it. And I also really encourage technique, not for the sake of technique, but technique for the sake that any musician has, especially, you know, talking about guitar here, we have to have physical ability, and we have to have strong and dexterous hands. And that is not going to happen in a gym. It's only going to happen by doing what I considered 30 plus years ago to be super boring exercises.
Right.
I didn't get it at the time. Now I understand the extreme value of just promoting hand health, finger independence, and just doing those 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4, 1, 4, 2, 3, like all of those permutations of your basic movement, muscle programming exercises. Now I get it.
Yeah.
and again, with all of my lessons, you know, on Guitopia and my private students and such, it's got to be part of the daily maintenance for sure.
I'm going to do one thing. It is getting dark here. Before I become a floating head here, I'm going to switch some lights on. Give me 1 second.
All good. All good.
They don't do a whole lot, but it's better than black. There we go.
You know, down here, I purposefully keep most of the lights off. Just because you're in a creative space, it's got to have a vibe.
Oh, yeah.
You got to have some sort of character to it. And so, I mean, there are a couple lights on, but not many. And I like it that way. I've got my, you know, my screen is right here. That's why I'm glowing purple. Particular, you know, whatever the newest Mac OS and the default desktop that comes with it. It's just, you know, you got to have that vibe. You got to want to be in your environment and be motivated and inspired by it. So, you know, that's why I've got all this gear, and I hang up these I don't know if you can see it really, but they're just tapestries.
Okay.
Really easy way to spruce up your environment without having to, you know, paint the walls, put something else on the walls. I mean, we're talking Amazon tapestries and thumbtacks. But if you want an instant spruce up to your place, and it's important, you know, I talk about this stuff again on Guitopia, like down to your chair. You need a chair. A guitar player needs a chair that at least has movable or removable arms.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I keep seeing guitar players buying your standard desk chairs with arms. I'm like, down to the chair. Yeah. Let's get it right so that we are inspired, comfortable, because that's going to promote you having that guitar in your hands more than if you're uncomfortable or uninspired in your environment, you're going to be less prone to the hours that we all need pretty much every day to keep getting better.
That makes sense. I mean, if you're fighting the armrest on your chair to get the right position, then you're just going to get frustrated. The hell with it and put it down.
Yeah, that's not fun.
So what inspired you to pick up the guitar and put the drums down?
There were two things. One, at the time, I was not really enjoying the fact in this band that I was, you know, in middle school. Basically, I guess it might have even been before middle school, but whenever it was, I was just playing a snare, you know, and it was just like, I wanted to rock out, and that was not doing it for me. I didn't really like the teacher. And then Back to the Future came out. And when Marty McFly in the beginning plugs his little Chiquita guitar into that huge, you know, amp at Doc Brown's house. Yeah. And he just hits it and flies back. I was like, you know, again, I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I was blown away. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, when he's playing Johnny B. Good,
Marvin Berry's band,
I was just like, you know, he's kicking over an amp and he's running around the stage. I was like, you know what? I think that's what I want to do. But which is funny because my personality is actually not like that, not to be out front. I'm a chill person, you know. I was a center fullback playing soccer, and my personality just suits being kind of behind a kit, or just a little bit. I don't like a lot of spotlight, you know. As much as I can open my mouth and talk, I really that's really more my personality. But it was just it just wasn't a question, you know, and I've always kind of lived my life like that. If there's a question, the answer is no. When there's no question and just a clear direction that your instincts take you, you got to do it. If you're questioning anything, there's hesitation. There's something in there that you should investigate more. That's what I'm saying. If there's a question, the answer right now is no.
Wow, okay.
Sit on it a little bit longer. Maybe a different answer or yes will eventually happen. But, you know, we've all had these moments in our life where we don't even have to think about it. It's just, yes, I'm doing that. This is what's happening. And that's the way it was for guitar with me. So I didn't listen, of course, as a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old. I'm not of the mental capacity to understand personality traits and what may or may not suit better, like being behind a kid in the back of the stage or standing on the edge of a stage with a rock star like Steve Vai, you know, doing all this stuff. You know, there was no question. It was just, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And that was it.
You ended up taking a path to going to GIT. Was that the plan from the beginning? Or, I mean...
Yeah, there was no questioning, again, to probably the detriment of my schoolwork growing up. I can tell you I literally did nothing. I got the smarts enough to just homework, test, done. But there was no time really spent on anything from 10 to graduation of high school. There was really nothing else done except playing guitar, you know? And then right when I graduated high school, I guess I was 17, and right then I wanted to move to LA. And I wanted to go to Musicians Institute then, but my parents were like, I wasn't even 18 yet. I graduated high school a year earlier, and they were like, you probably should just get a little more age, a little more experience under your belt. Move across the country and go live in a crazy place like Hollywood. And so I went to college. I did. And it was basically a waste. It was a waste of money, and it was a waste of time. Don't get me wrong. I had a good time there and I made good friends, but education-wise, total waste of time. Wow. Total waste. Yeah. And it's because every second I was at this school, I was like, this is a waste of time. I need to be in LA. I need to be starting my career. Yeah. You know? Again, there was no question. And unfortunately, I couldn't enjoy myself. You know what I mean? I could not enjoy myself really. I did, you know, to a degree, but every year of college, I was still thinking, and I was playing guitar and I was just working on it. And I was like, all right. So I told my parents, I'll go to college, but without fail, when I'm done with that, I'm moving to LA. I'm going to MI. And that's what I did. You know, again, there just wasn't a question.
And that's how you met Steve.
Yeah. When I got to LA, as MI hadn't even started yet, but I got there maybe like 2 weeks early because you got to find a place to live. Yeah. And MI makes that. MI facilitates that, like most schools do. Right. They've got a list of people looking for roommates and the local buildings near the school where availabilities are for, you know, apartments and such. And I found a place, found a roommate, and blah blah blah. But I remember being at school trying to take care of that at MI. And that's where there was, you know, it's nothing like now. Yeah. It was still analog world back then. Right. Yeah. Talking 98. And there was just a cork board up with little index cards. And those were all job positions that were available. Okay. And I had the inclination to take a look at that. Because I knew, you know, again, you can be the best of whatever you are, but if nobody knows you and you don't start making those connections, it's exponentially more difficult to do whatever you're trying to do. So I knew that, and happened to find one that was a management firm, and I thought that'd be good to learn the business side of things. Okay, yeah. No names, just a fax number, not even a telephone number. Fax number. And it just said, you know, artist management firm seeks intern 2 days a week, and not even like 2 full days, you know. So I was there to go to school. Yeah. And it had a fax number, fax your resume, and I got a call that evening, unusually late, like 11. Oh, wow. And it turned out to be this woman, Ruta Sepetys, who is Steve's original manager. He's got a different manager now because she has gone on to become a world best-selling novelist. Oh, wow.
I didn't realize that.
Left turn. She is huge now. Her books are being made into movies. It's really, it's remarkable.
She waited for yes. She's sitting there. Should I do this? No. She's following your advice.
Yeah, yeah. And anyway, she calls me and she's like, hey, I got your facts and your resume looks good. Let me tell you a little bit about, we've got this band. And she managed, in the late 90s, there was a huge band called Lit.
Yes.
You know, My Own Worst Enemy was their big hit. They had a few of them. She managed them, Eric Sardinas, a few other acts. And the last one she mentioned, she's like, do you know a guitar player named Steve Vai? I'm like, yeah, I had a poster of him on my wall growing up as a kid. Right. But I was not a fanboy. I kept it very professional because as soon as you become a fanboy, sorry, maybe that's, you know, gender biased, a fan person.
A fan person.
Because anybody can be like that. Yeah. It's very easy to be like that. Oh, yeah. But as soon as you are, you're kind of put into this fan category, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, there's colleagues and there's fans, you know, of work of any kind, photography, art, music, whatever it might be. So kept it super pro all the time. And that's how I met Steve, long story short. But even with Steve, never talked about my guitar playing. He knew I was a guitar player. He knew I went to MI, but I never once was a fan to him. Right. Pushed my music on him or guitar playing. I let all that happen. I let them come to me and say, hey, I'd like to hear some playing. And I was recording a demo with some of the recording students at MI and shitty 4-song demo, you know, by today's standards. But Steve was like, yeah, that's cool. And he's like, yeah, I need another guitar player for this tour we're about to do. Can you do it? And I was like, yeah, I can do that.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Man, so that demo, did anything ever come of that? Did you ever use any of that stuff in your solo work?
I do have it. I do still have it. I've never released it. But some of those ideas did turn into some of the songs that were on my first record, Shove the Sun Aside.
Awesome. Oh, cool.
There's a song on there called Monument Shine.
Yes.
That was the first song, or some parts of it. You know, it evolved after I recorded that and joined Steve's band and really kind of just changed my perspective on music and playing and just upped everything. But the initial riff on that was the first song on the demo. And there were some other ones that trickled into some work since then.
Oh, that's awesome. Never waste a good idea.
No, you can't. You can't. You really, anytime, and again, something I recommend to everybody, and not that it's needed, but it's super obvious. Those ideas are little nuggets of gold. Yeah. And we all know that if you don't capture it in 5 seconds, it's gone.
Yeah.
At least for me it is, because my brain's always a million miles an hour. So I always have my phone like ready to go. And there are literally thousands of videos in my iCloud from my phone of any ideas, any idea I come with immediately. It's a multi-daily occurrence.
God, I don't know how you guys, I've heard that from some other artists, and I think I listened to an interview with Steve's talking about that. I don't know how you guys keep track of all those. I mean, there's got to be awesome riffs that have gotten lost or forgotten about that years later, this is
the
good.
way to do it, my system anyway, the way to do it in my world is just don't think about it, just record the videos. And then, you know, again, the beautiful thing about all the stuff that I use, you know, all the Mac stuff is it's just automatically up in the iCloud. I don't have to do anything with it. Right. Once it's there though, you do have to be diligent about it. And I review them and then I classify them by genre.
Oh, okay.
Nothing else. I don't have time. Nobody else has time. The only thing we need to classify by is really genre. Okay. Because then if you're going to do a project of some sort, you can go into that genre folder and you've got those ideas that are going to serve that genre for that project and whatever. That's really the only organization that I do with those kinds of things. And it can be difficult because there are quite a few, but that's just my recommendation. I don't care about key, quality, technique used, any of that stuff, just the genre, and that's it.
Yeah, because I mean, you can always modify the general idea to fit if it's going to work with that project you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's quite a few years between Shove the Sun Aside and On Revolute.
Right.
Was that just because you're touring so much or working?
Yeah, it's the touring thing. It's the touring thing. And the first record, I was touring with Steve, and then we went and we did a whole new tour. And on that tour, Steve, I had no experience with this in particular, but Steve's like, you're going to record every show.
Oh.
And here's the gear, figure it out, engineer it, put it together, blah, blah, blah. And that turned into a double live record called Alive in an Ultra World.
Oh, it's a great album.
And I did all the live engineering for that.
Wow.
Every day. I had no idea what I was doing.
That was the one where each track on there was like an improv for a country.
Yeah.
Or for wherever stop that you guys were at.
Yeah.
That is a cool.
Technology was there, but hard drives, and we're talking early 2000s. We're talking like a 17 gig drive was like $1,500. And the only way to really back things up then was to a tape machine.
Oh wow!
So all that stuff we had on the road, and Steve was nominated for a couple of songs for Grammys, I think, off of that record.
Okay.
I mean, I know for sure. I've got them hanging up somewhere. And, the song "Whispering a Prayer" was from this record.
Right.
And on the record, before he plays the song, he says, "Are we rolling? Are we actually rolling?" Because I remember that day, the gear was not cooperating.
We are going to change our normal program and play a new song for you, okay? Because we are recording it. Are we actually recording? Is the red light on? Is Buenos Aires going to enter into immortality?
That was a tough day for me because, again, this legend, Steve Vai, puts his entire project in my very inexperienced hands.
Wow.
And it was a bit of a train wreck, but it turned out perfectly. The record has been nominated for a few Grammys and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Fast forward to when we get off of that tour, I say, all right, I'm going to record my first real record. So we get off tour. I asked Steve and his engineers, what do you recommend? I want to do this all by myself. I want to learn how to do it. Okay. Which of course I didn't do it all by myself, but a lot of it I did. He's like, all right, get these mic pre's, compressors, EQs, get Pro Tools and blah, 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 blah. So in between tours, I would chip away at recording these, that first record.
Okay.
And we're just back on tour constantly, after that. And so it took some time until I actually had a solid year and a half, 2 years off. And that's when I started doing On Revolute. It's a little, I don't want to say the word sad, but those records burnt me out.
Really?
Really badly. Wow. Because each of them, the first one, not knowing what I was doing, was a constant, every single day was a battle. It was like, I need this sound. So with this mic placement, is this going to win? Just constant. It was just a lot of work. And then On Revolute, just as a record it's the longest record I personally know of.
Yeah.
It's 76 minutes.
Yeah, each track is quite long. It's 6.5 to 8 minutes long. I think there's a 12-minute long track at the end.
The title track is 12 minutes long. If I never released anything else, that song on that record is good enough for me. my own, I only live in my own little world here, and everything I ever wanted in music is in that song for me.
Yeah.
But they took so long to do, and they were just such a chore. Between that and a lot more touring, another bunch of years goes by, and I think it was 2012. I was like, I need to put something else out, but I can't do another one of those records. So I went to the extreme opposite, and I put out a record called Collection of Short Stories, Volume 1, and that's me with one acoustic guitar and nothing else.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you so much. From sitting down to conceive the concept, writing it, recording it, releasing it, the whole thing front to back was maybe 6 months.
Oh, wow.
It was so fast. I was like, this is exactly what it. Fast forward another bunch of years, I think to 2017, after a whole bunch more touring, I re-released the first record, remastered it, added, I think, 3 or 4 new songs. Maybe it's three new songs.
Yeah.
Again, 2016, 2017, more touring. And here we are. A Collection of Short Stories Volume 2 is now off to mixing and mastering.
Awesome.
That I did last year. Again, a bit more of a battle on other reasons, on other levels. So I chopped it down to 6 songs only. So it's basically an EP, but that's going to be good enough. So that's coming out this year at some point. And now I'm on to, I'm going to do one more EP, just because I just feel like I'm in EP mode and I'm enjoying doing smaller projects. Yeah. So I not burn myself out.
And this whole pandemic thing is really, I've seen a lot of people doing that. Things have gone to singles and EPs rather than full length releases.
Yeah. And people that have, like colleagues I have, that have recorded and have full length new releases, they didn't release them.
Right.
They're waiting to leverage it with a tour.
Yeah.
And when you can't, because that's where the money is for musicians now. Yeah. It's not music. What am I going to get? 0.00003 cents from Spotify?
Exactly.
You got to be Taylor Swift to make any real money off of streaming platforms. So it's all about the touring and such. So yeah, 2020 was just for everyone, just a total nightmare of a year, but things are looking good this year. And last year, being home, like I said, I did the acoustic record. My band, I have a band actually called Monument Shine now.
Oh, okay. I wanted to ask you about that.
I started in 2019 and wrote songs, put a band together. We did 1 gig. I released 1 single and video. We were into 2020.
Yeah.
And played 1 show with Steve, and then COVID happened. But during that time, I wanted to revamp the direction of that band, revamp the band itself. So I put together a new band. We wrote a full record. I still have never met the drummer. I have never met the bass player. I still have never met the keyboard player. Wow. It was all via, online, Skype and such. And
that's wild.
What's great is you do have to just adapt to the situation. What sucks is it takes way longer to, here's an idea, I'm going to send this to you. And a week later it comes back and there's 3 seconds of music added. So it has to go back and forth and back and forth. And it's just not the same as being in a room with people making music.
Right.
So we're doing what we can with it, and we're almost done recording the first single, and then that'll be mixed and mastered.
Are there vocals in this one?
Yes, it's basically a jam type band situation. The aim is festival music. It's really like festival type music, like
Awesome.
Dead, Fish, Panic, Humphreys McGee, and so on and so on. Just a stage of good musicians with accessible music that's just fun to listen to and fun to dance to and that kind of stuff. It's not pop. It's, you know, again, it's like Dave Matthews meets Fish meets Dead meets blah, 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 blah.
Oh,
you
that's
know,
awesome.
no rules about it except, you know, good musicians and playing some fun music. And that's really it.
Man, I'm anxious to hear that. Several years ago now, I don't know if you mentioned Humphreys McGee. Did you ever get up with their side little project, Omfrey? It's Chris Poland. It's basically Humphreys McGee with Chris Poland from Megadeth. And it's really good.
Well, I've heard of his project called Ohm. It's just OHM.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a mix of those two.
Yeah.
It is so
He's
good.
awesome. He's a sick player.
All right, so that you're working on that project. I mean, did you say there was a time frame for that, or are you just kind of going with the flow?
The first single is almost done.
Yeah.
Again, last year we wrote 10 songs. We wrote a full record, but because we still have never gotten in a room together. I mean, now I'm vaccinated, the singer's vaccinated. I think Josh, the drummer, is, you know, it's just, you know, the ripple effect from 2020 is going to last a while.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, we were all home and now, you know, things are opening up and it's kind of like playing catch up on multiple levels. For, you know, because musicians are usually involved in a few different projects, and some people have, you know, full-time other jobs or had to get other jobs because the rug was pulled out from under us and no shows, no money. You know, it really is what it is. But slowly but surely things are going to come out. So this first single will be out this summer.
Cool.
Sometime. And then we're going to keep going from there.
Okay. Now, were you continuing to do Guitopia throughout 2020?
I did. And, you know, it's bittersweet for me.
Okay.
One, I can certainly feel appreciative for having something like that is kind of COVID proof.
Right.
You know, pandemic proof, because it's all online and it's just me. You know, I do everything on that site front to back. The downfall to that is I'm super burnt out on that. When you do anything way, because, you know, again, when I get into something, I'm buried in it because I'm a very passionate person and there's no other way to do things. But when you start getting burnt out, you start half-assing everything.
Yes.
So the content will never be half-assed. It's the business side of things that I simply can't be bothered with, and I will not be bothered with ever. So I am trying my hardest to get other people involved to handle the site, the business, the promo, all of that other stuff, because I'm sorry, I'm not alive for that.
Right.
I'm not a teacher, although I am by default, like any musician is by default when you got to make some money off tour.
Right.
And you kind of have a functioning brain like I do, and you can put a couple of words together to form a sentence and convey an idea and teach something as clear as possible. You know, so for some reason I have a little bit of a skill set for that, but it's becoming more and more difficult, you know, and I think 2020 being like, oh, okay, this is all my income right now is coming from this, so laser focus and blah, blah, blah. And now that things are opening up again, it's like, okay, you know, you again, to bring it around full circle, there's no question about what I should be doing, you know, and everyone, hopefully they can get in tune with their just, you know, we talk about gut feeling, you know, there's only one of those. There's one direction to go in at a time. And as soon as you try to split yourself, like I've been doing between Guitopia and building that and music, it starts to separate you. You basically become two people, and it's hard to shift gears like that mentally.
Yeah, and you can't put all your effort into either one.
Yeah.
So,
that sucks horribly, because I don't want to half-ass anything, so a decision has to be made at some point, and you just have to go with what you're feeling. So I'm progressing. I'm keeping it going. Guitopia is there. It's alive and well. I do multiple live events every week. Okay. But that was one of the turning points. In last year, something had to give. And up until last year, it was plan the lessons, record the lessons, edit. And it's just, and I outsourced a lot of that. But also a lot of it I would do. Okay. Just because I'm like, I can get this done very quickly. But it's never that quickly. It's never that quickly. And no matter what you're trying to do, you're in that mindset for like 3-4 hours, and then you're tired, and then can't work on music. And, well, toughen up. You got to make a living. I get that. But at the same time, we're all going to be dead someday. Yep. And when you're dying, when you want to look back on your life, do you want to think, yep, I paid bills? Yeah. Or do you want to think, I lived how I wanted to live? I feel like I served my purpose.
Exactly.
I am not alive to pay bills. At the detriment to myself, I keep using that word, but I don't give a shit about houses, cars, material things. I don't care at all. I wish I did. And I know, if you're listening to this as a podcast, you're not seeing the background here. If I didn't have connections in the industry, there is no way I would have all of this shit around me. Because I wouldn't buy it. I simply wouldn't buy it, And I think that's a good thing. I don't care about that stuff.
I think that's very healthy, actually.
I need a few tools, like any tradesperson does. I need some tools, but I certainly don't need a lot. And if you might have heard Steve say as well, just live a bit below your means and you never have to worry.
That's true.
And I've always been like that, because from 10 years old, I never cared. I was into guitar. I wasn't into, I didn't get caught up in the material thing. Now, I appreciate now more than ever a good vacation, and a comfortable, lifestyle. But that doesn't mean lavish to me.
Right. Okay. We're running up on our time here, and I don't want to keep you any longer than I promised. So,
no worries.
Where can people find you and follow you and find out what's going on with the new band and when Steve goes back on tour? Yeah,
just Facebook, Instagram. That's really kind of it right now. I do live events like for everyone on YouTube and Facebook. Guitopia, of course, if anybody happens to, for whatever reason, enjoy my mindset, my philosophical, ramblings and shit. How philosophical is that? And shit. Everything that that's the thing that people have to remember. When you go to somebody's business, let's say something like Guitopia, that's 30, almost 35 years of experience, but filtered, real world, professional experience. And that has been filtered down to just get you the answers. So it's all output focused. That's the thing, is everyone, this is the flaw in education. It's the flaw in guitar education for sure. Speaking from my own experience, everybody's so concerned about, I gotta know all the technique, I gotta know all the theory, I gotta know everything, I have to ingest everything. And yet, the focus on outputting any of that is non-existent. And people wonder why they're not getting anywhere with music, because they simply don't know how to use what they're learning.
I didn't think about it like that.
So Guitopia is all focused on output, on music output.
Is there skill level that you would recommend for beginners to novice to experts?
I mean, there's a little bit of something for everyone. Cool. And there are many features that you can just dive in. I mean, as of yesterday, there's 437 jam tracks.
Oh wow.
That aren't anywhere else except for Guitopia, and I've built nearly all of them myself.
Wow.
I couldn't even tell you. I mean, there's 700 something lessons of the week at this point.
Jeez.
I started on YouTube in like 05 or 06. It was called Riff of the Week back then.
Yes, I remember.
It's a stupid name. I wasn't teaching riffs. It just didn't make any sense. But I just picked a name and went with it.
Yeah, I think you're being a little too technical and a little hard on yourself for that one.
Yeah.
It's catchy.
But no, I mean, that never stopped. It really never stopped. There's boot camps, but the actual course is called the Guitar Path. And that is taking a lot of time. We're in the intermediate phase now. But I spent years developing the beginner phase because I didn't want to leave. The aim was to have it be the most comprehensive guitar course ever, especially in that beginner phase, because when you get into intermediate level and then advanced level, by the time you get there, it's really not that difficult if you spent enough time in the beginner phase and building the proper foundation.
Oh, that makes sense.
So that's it. That's the thing. Don't as an example, even a beginner guitar book, they will say, okay, chapter whatever, maybe 2 or 3 in those books. Here are 5 open chords, C, A, G, E, D, whatever else it might be.
Right.
You can learn those chords, and guess what? You still have no idea what to do with them.
Exactly.
So in the Guitar Path, we talk about this philosophy, and I say, and I guarantee you, any person on the planet, I can give them a guitar, I can show them a D chord, but what's more important is showing them some form of rhythmic strumming pattern. And instantly, with that little knowledge of one chord, not 5, not 50, not all the chords,
right,
but one, you're now a musician because you're taking this thing and you're strumming and you're making music with it, because music is, and this is a question that most people can't answer. I say, what is music? And people go, oh, God, I never thought of that. What does that mean? Blah, blah, blah. It's melody, harmony, and rhythm.
Right. And like you said, it goes back to rhythm, which, from your beginning, from your musical inception, that's been your focus.
Exactly. It's let's get good with one chord and make music with one chord, make music with one scale before you worry about learning. It's like I see some beginners and they're trying to get down the modes of melodic minor. And listen, I'm never going to be an obstacle for people's quest of knowledge of any kind, but that stuff is way easier when you know the 6 beginner scales and then the modes of the parent scales, which would be your intermediate level. And by the time you get to harmonic and melodic minor and their modes and the symmetrical scales and then the exotic scales and blah, 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 that stuff is easy. That stuff is actually really simple if you spent enough time going through this path, this course, whatever you want to call it. It's really not that difficult, but the philosophy has to be right and it has to be taught from experience. And that's ultimately the difference between, I get emails almost every day. Hey, I've been trying to learn guitar from YouTube, but I don't seem to be getting anywhere. So I think I need some better guidance and et cetera. And I'm like, because you're trying to learn from somebody who never left their house.
Right.
You know what I mean? On YouTube, they have a functioning brain, a camera, a web connection. They do the clickbait face as a freaking thumbnail. And it's not that the information is wrong, although a lot of it is taught incorrectly. It's that they don't know how to teach even the right stuff because they don't have the experience. They didn't go through showing up at Steve Vai's house and saying, your turn to solo, day 1, 5 minutes in, go. Wow, I got to make this thing musical now. And that thing might be A minor pentatonic. You can't stand there in front of Steve Vai and recite a scale.
No,
so
God,
what else
no.
do you do with it? You got to focus on the output, which is rhythm, phrasing, yes, technique, force, style, dynamics. That's the lifeblood of music. You got to, there's no way to get that experience unless you're a doer. You can't sit in your basement and think. You can become a YouTuber in your basement, but that takes away the qualification.
Or you can become a podcaster.
There's nothing wrong with podcasting.
A guitar podcast.
Podcasts are fun.
Well, man, I've had a blast, man. You're always welcome back. If you ever want to come back in
part 2.
Awesome. Yeah, we can do part 2. You're always welcome to come back on. I've had a blast chatting with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I've had a great time as well. Yeah, thank you.